What's up everybody, and welcome back to another episode of Ask Me Anything. I know these videos are supposed to come out on Mondays, but something came up yesterday I just wasn't able to record. There's a lot of really good questions this episode, so I didn't just want to miss a week and put it off until next week. Better late than never. Of course, I want to give a huge thank you to every single one of you who took the time out of your day to go ahead and leave a question on the post. I feel like there was more questions this week than usual, so huge thanks to you guys. You all make this series so much fun for me to do. With that all being said, let's go ahead and get started. The first question comes from the sad Rangers fan, who I imagine isn't very sad this season because of how good the Rangers are, but the question is actually about the Islanders. Do the Islanders try and get back in the playoff race despite a division, or do they embrace the tank and rebound next season? Also, thank you so much for the support, and for the people that don't really understand this question or how it was worded, I'm guessing they just mean despite the Islanders' poor start to the season and them being in a tough division, should they embrace the tank or should they still try to get back into the playoff race? I definitely think they should still try and go for the playoffs. I mean, they're only 4 games under 500. They have a lot of games in hand on the majority of teams in their division. The most difficult part of the season for the New York Islanders is over. That's in the past. They can forget about it. They finally won their first game on home ice, so that isn't hanging over their heads anymore either. All things considered, I think the Islanders are going to be just fine. I feel like they are going to be competing for a playoff spot down the stretch, and with the way that the roster is constructed, the players that they have, I don't think Lou Lamoriello would embrace the tank really no matter what. This next question comes from Nebula123, who says, do you think the Canucks can make it into the playoffs now that they got Bruce Boudreau helping them win? And also, again, thank you for the support. Well, as of now, they have a perfect 4-0-0 record under Bruce Boudreau. They're only 6 points out of the final wildcard spot. They're not out of things anymore, especially after this winning streak by any means. So could the Canucks make the playoffs under Bruce Boudreau? Sure, I feel like there's new life in the Vancouver Canucks organization. The team is playing inspired, and I don't really expect that to just quickly fade anytime soon. Even with that being said though, at this point in the season, am I predicting them to make the playoffs? I'm gonna say no, just because there's so many good teams in the Western Conference. I mean, the 2 wildcard spots right now are held by Colorado and Vegas. I have a hard time believing the Canucks can catch either of those teams. Next up, we have a question from Wizard Tower, who says, are the Oilers too dependent on their power play, and can they fix their issues at 5-on-5? In terms of the first part of your question, are they too dependent on the power play? I would say probably, just because we all know how the game is officiated in the playoffs. They're not going to get the type of calls they get in the regular season in a 7-game playoff series, and while I think that's incredibly stupid and I don't think the rules should change in the playoffs, but that's just the reality of things. If they want to go on a deep playoff run, if they want to even win a playoff round, they're going to have to clean things up at 5-on-5, and they're going to have to learn how to win games in which maybe they don't score a power play goal. For a team that has a record of 16-10 right now, which is really solid, they're getting outscored 59-50 at 5-on-5, so that should kind of tell you everything you need to know there. Moving along now to the next question from one of those names I'm not even going to try to pronounce, but you can see it on the screen. If he stays healthy, do you see Yoho Levy cracking a regular spot in the Panthers roster? And also, I appreciate the kind words. Unfortunately, I'm going to say no. He's played a couple of games this season for them. I believe their most recent game against Colorado, he played like under 5 minutes in that game. When everybody on the Panthers is healthy, when all the defensemen are healthy, I just don't see a reality where he's a mainstay in their top 6. Next up, this question comes from Harper Bray, who says, out of all the players in the league, who do you think is underperforming the most, and who do you think is turning the most heads with their play so far this season? To answer the second part of your question first, I'll name off 2 players who I feel like are turning the most heads this season. First, a guy we've talked about on this channel at length so far this season, Troy Terry, who is a legitimate star now. He's not slowing down. That's an obvious one right there. And second, I'll say Ryan Hartman, who is second on the Minnesota Wild in points with 23, only behind Kirill Kaprizov. He's tied for first on the team in goals with 13. He's been playing first-line center for the Minnesota Wild for a good chunk of this season, and it's not like he's just doing this on a bad team either. The Minnesota Wild are legitimately one of the best teams in the league. I feel like that makes what Ryan Hartman's doing that much more impressive. He's contributing a lot to their success. So Troy Terry in Anaheim, Hartman in Minnesota, those are 2 guys who I feel like are turning a lot of heads this season. And as far as a player who I feel like is really underperforming, I'll say Pettersson, who is under half a point per game right now. Obviously, this is a guy who I feel like everyone expects to be, you know, a point per game player, be a top 20 centerman in the league. In Pettersson's defense, though, he has looked a lot more like Elias Pettersson over the past 4 games. under Bruce Boudreau. He's back playing, you know, upwards of 18 minutes a night, so I do expect him to turn it around. And since I mentioned 2 players for guys who are turning heads, I'll mention another player here for underperforming. Jeff Petrie in Montreal. He's got 2 points in 25 games. Defensively, he has not been good either. This just isn't the Jeff Petrie that we've seen in seasons past, and especially when you consider they no longer have Shea Weber, I feel like that makes Petrie's play this season that much more disappointing. Moving on now to the next question from Overlordship, who actually has 2 questions. We're only going to answer the top part here though. Does goaltender Jeremy Swayman have a chance to make the US Olympic team this year? So far, we have seen nothing but good things from Jeremy Swayman in his NHL career thus far. It's just the sample size is too small, and also there's just too much competition for this spot. I feel like for him to have a realistic chance at making the team, John Gibson, Connor Hellebuck, Jack Campbell, Thatcher Demko, those are 4 right there who I feel like have a lot higher of a chance of making the team, obviously, than Jeremy Swayman, and there's probably some others as well. If I had to guess, I would say the US probably didn't even have Jeremy Swayman on their 55 player list, and again, that's just because we haven't seen enough of him and there's just too much competition at this spot. Next up, we have a question from Artu Vinica. I hope I said your name properly. I apologize if not. This is a really interesting question. Is there, in your opinion, some kind of age limit, 65 plus or something like that, with wearing jerseys, and can you wear third team's jerseys although that team doesn't play in the game? For example, Wild jersey to an Avs vs Rangers game. Heard these questions in 32 Thoughts, the podcast, and wanted to hear your opinions about them, and also thank you for the kind words. Answering the second part of your question first, I definitely feel like you can wear whatever jersey you want to a hockey game. It doesn't matter if the team's playing or not. Like, if there was a team, an NHL team here in Halifax, I would go to a lot of games and I would probably still just wear a Red Wings jersey. I don't see anything wrong with still wanting to support your team while just being a hockey fan and wanting to watch other teams play too. And now for the first part of your question, and honestly this gets me kind of fired up, this whole discourse. I remember like a year or 2 ago there was, I feel like a pretty prevalent member in hockey media came out and said you shouldn't wear a jersey of a player who is younger than you, and that's weird. In my opinion, that is the stupidest thing I have ever heard. I don't even really understand where that argument comes from. Like, Lucas Raymond is younger than me now. There's players on the Red Wings that are younger than me, and I'm going to be wearing their jerseys for a long time. In my opinion, wear whatever you want, support your favorite team, support your favorite players no matter their age, no matter your age. Some people just try and find things to judge other people about, and to me those are the worst kinds of people, so that's my take on this. Moving on now to the next question. This one comes from ZKDLWNS, who says, if the Ducks are in a playoff spot or near it at the trade deadline, do you think they will be sellers or buyers? I'm gonna say neither, or maybe like conservative buyers. I could see them maybe trading like a 3rd or 4th round pick for like a bottom 6 forward or like a utility player just to add some depth to the team. I really can't see them going out and trying to get an expensive rental, giving up like a 1st or 2nd round pick or one of their better prospects. I just can't see that happening. I still think they have to focus on the future while still trying to maintain the success they're having right now. So I don't really think they're going to do a whole lot of anything at the deadline if they're in a similar situation to what they're in right now, where they're actually 1st in the Pacific Division. Because say for an example, you get a crazy offer for somebody like Hampus Lindholm. Trading away a player that important to the team, although it may be beneficial for the team's future, it would probably be very discouraging for the players in the locker room right now. You don't want to pull the rug out from under those guys that are performing so well. So that would be my answer. I think they're going to be like really conservative buyers. Next up, a question from Hussey's Huddle, who says, do you think Filip Zadina will ever fulfill his potential that people thought he had when he was drafted? This is a really tough question, and I'll get the obvious part out of the way right away. It all depends kind of on how you viewed Filip Zadina when the Red Wings selected him 6th overall, what you thought his potential was. If you thought he was going to be, you know, a point per game guy, someone who can score 40 goals in a season, he's probably never going to live up to that expectation. If you're somebody like me who thought Filip Zadina was going to be a really good second line forward who could get you 30 goals and 30 assists in a season, like a 30-30 guy, you know, 60-point player, you probably still are going to be left kind of disappointed. I don't see him living up to that either. I do think he has a place in the NHL though. He is already one of Detroit's better forwards when you look at his play driving numbers and stuff like that. He's just really not a good finisher. If he can even just start to get some more luck on his side, I do think this is a player that can have some 20-goal seasons, but I don't really ever envision him as being like a dominant top 6 forward for the Detroit Red Wings. So those are kind of my thoughts. Again, it depends on how you viewed Filip Zadina, but in terms of like the consensus, what the majority of scouts thought Filip Zadina would be when he was drafted, I'm going to say there's probably a good chance he doesn't ever live up to that, but I do still think this is a guy who should be at least a productive NHLer for a long time. Moving along, now we have a question from Gregory who says, should the Norris account more for defensive players? I personally think that players like Mario Ferraro should be in the conversation. I'm with you on that for sure. The Norris Trophy is awarded to the best defenseman in the league in a given season, and obviously there's a lot more to being a good defenseman than putting up points and being a good offensive defenseman. Like, when was the last time a defenseman won the Norris Trophy in a season in which he wasn't top 10 in scoring by defenseman? I would have to look it up, but I feel like it's probably been a long time, or maybe it's never even happened. I'm not sure. I feel like a pretty easy solution to this would just be to make a different award for the best defensive defenseman in a season, and then you can keep the Norris Trophy for the best overall defenseman, but I feel like there should be one that is just dedicated to a player and how good they are defensively, but I just really don't think that's ever going to happen, unfortunately. Next up, we have a question from Johan1921. Does Dallas still move Hudobin since Bishop is done? If so, where does he go, and what does the return look like? We now kind of know the answer to this, what the return could look like, and that is nothing, because Dallas has actually put Anton Hudobin on waivers. They did this yesterday. As of the time I'm recording this, there's been no word on if he's been claimed or not, but if I had to guess, I feel like he is going to clear waivers, and I'm sure that's going to be disappointing for some Stars fans. I mean, Hudobin did some great things in Dallas, obviously their run to the Stanley Cup final, he was probably their most important player, him and Miro Heiskanen, but in reality, there's just probably not a big market for a goaltender who's north of 35 years old, has a sub 900 save percentage this season, who's still signed through next season as well. Looking at things from the bright side though, Dallas's goaltending situation is still looking really good with Jake Ottinger and Braden Holtby, who are both playing really well this season, and if Hudobin does clear waivers and then say, Holtby or Ottinger goes down with an injury, which is obviously something you don't want to happen, but then you have that insurance policy of being able to bring up Hudobin and having him not have to clear waivers again. The next question comes from Splits, who says, favorite movie? This is Ask Me Anything. After all, I'll give a couple honorable mentions. I love Mall Cop, both 1 and 2. I also love Grown Ups 1 and 2. I feel like those movies are hilarious and they're just classics for me. But my all-time favorite movie, I'm a bit of a nerd, it's Star Wars Revenge of the Sith. I grew up on that movie and it has stood the test of time and is still my all-time favorite. I'm a bit of a Star Wars nerd, so there's something new I'm sure you guys didn't know about me. And now for the final question of today's Ask Me Anything. It actually comes from Obi-Wan Kenobi. Speaking of Star Wars, I swear I didn't do that on purpose. What do you see happening with the Bruins goaltending situation when Rask comes back? Do you see Ullmark getting traded? To be honest with you, I have absolutely no clue what the Bruins plan on doing, because you can't send Jeremy Swayman down to the AHL. He's too good for that. And also, I really can't see them trading Linus Ullmark because he's in the first year of a 4-year, $20 million deal, and he has a .921 save percentage. It's not like he's playing bad. So I'm honestly really intrigued to see what the Bruins do if and when, most likely when Tuukka Rask comes back, because I feel like it's almost inevitable at this point that they are going to sign him. Any Bruins fans watching this video, I'm interested to hear your take on this. What do you see happening when Tuukka Rask comes back? Because again, Linus Ullmark, first year of a $20 million 4-year deal, and he's playing well, and you can't send Swayman down, so what's going to happen? What's going to give here? So that is going to wrap up today's episode of the Ask Me Anything series. Like I always say, I hope you guys are enjoying this series as much as I'm enjoying making it. Of all the videos I do on my channel, these are by far my favorite to make. So if you did enjoy and you want to see another Ask Me Anything next week, then be sure to leave this video a like. That is the best way to show your support. And if you're new and this is your first time checking out the channel and you want more NHL content just like this, be sure to hit that subscribe button, and I will talk to you all soon.